Welcome to the Blessors of Israel Podcast. I'm Matthew Dodd, Executive Director of Blessors of Israel. Well, it happened yesterday, Saturday, June 21st, 2025. We are told that President Donald Trump ordered the U.S. military to strike 3 nuclear facilities in Iran, thus bringing the United States into the fray between Israel and Iran. If you remember a little over a week ago, that Israel unilaterally struck Iran because of intelligence they had acquired that said Iran was very close to obtaining a nuclear warhead. They stated as their goal to eliminate Iran's ability to have a nuclear weapon, plus they wanted to minimize Iran's ability to increase their ballistic missile stockpile. Also, there was a threat that there might be some type of kinetic activity where Iran would bring their military into Israel, so they are trying to minimize that as well. So they began to strike, and very successfully so, strike the military munitions and strategic locations that Iran had to minimize their ability to have a nuclear weapon or also increase their ballistic missile stockpile. Now, there's been a lot of back and forth. There have been many injuries in Israel, and the United States has been acting in a defensive posture to support Israel as those ballistic missiles are coming into Israel. But everything changed on Saturday. There had been dialogue for quite some time between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump in regards to getting the U.S. involved in the offensive, in regards to attacking the 3 nuclear sites. Because at the Fordo site, it's buried within a mountain. It's a nuclear facility that's buried deep within a mountain. And frankly, Israel didn't have anything in terms of their munitions or technology that would permit them to really have an impact on that site. So there was this request by Netanyahu and the Israeli government for the United States to get involved because the United States has the stealth B-2 bombers, and they also have what's called a bunker buster. It's a 30,000-pound bomb that can go deep within the ground and disrupt that which is underneath it. And so anyway, that was the goal, to bring the United States in. Even though Israel said we can finish it without the United States' help, they obviously preferred to have the United States' help. Well, we're not exactly sure all that transpired, but it appears that there was enough intelligence for President Donald Trump to feel like the United States did need to get involved. Well, let's take a step back even further. Why would that be necessary? Well, it's important to note, first and foremost, that Donald Trump has been talking about the fact that he believed, even before he was president, over 20 years ago, that Iran should never have a nuclear weapon. And then he becomes president, second term, early in his presidency. He sends a letter to Iran, and he states to the Iranian leadership, let's come to the table. Let's negotiate this. There's no need for you to enrich uranium at the levels that you are, at 60%, when it's only necessary for you to enrich uranium at 3.67% for energy purposes. Now, it's also important to note, we've talked about this in previous podcasts, that Iran has some of the cheapest energy per kilowatt hour in the world, less than half a cent per kilowatt hour, very, very cheap. So in many ways, they don't even need nuclear energy. But that being said, the United States was going to say, hey, if you want to have nuclear energy, here's what we'll do. Dismantle your nuclear program. Dismantle everything. Enrich the uranium somewhere else. We'll bring this in. You can have your nuclear energy. Well, Iran, true to form, they do this every single time. They've done this with administration after administration. They play the delay game. They play the delay game because they want to outwait the current administration until the next administration comes in. They'll just play that game as long as they need to. Just play it and play it, string you along. But Donald Trump saw through that. He saw through their antics, and soon Iran realized when President Trump gives a deadline, 60 days, he means it. For just about 65 to 67 days later, the United States struck those 3 nuclear facilities. Now, earlier today, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, along with the chair of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, had a meeting, and they shared, both of them, the details of the strike that took place yesterday, that evidently there were about 75 precision-guided weapons that were used, about 125 different vessels from the United States that were used as well, 7 B-2 stealth bombers, and 14 30,000-pound bunker busters. By the way, they also included 24 Tomahawk missiles that were shot from a sub nearby at those 3 nuclear facilities, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Now, Trump made it very clear in his announcement last night, and it was reiterated by Hegseth and Kane, that the United States is not looking to enter into war. All they're trying to do is, through a narrow scope, state, you're not going to have a nuclear weapon, Iran. We're not looking for regime change here. We're not going to have boots on the ground. We just don't want you to have a nuclear bomb because you've made it very clear over the years that you hate America. That's why you chant death to America. That's why you've attacked our people. And that is going to happen no more. You see, they took seriously what the Ayatollah said when he said, death to America is not a slogan. That is their mission statement in Iran. Death to America because America is the great Satan. And also death to Israel because Israel is the little Satan. So the mindset, the purpose, the mission statement for Iran has not changed. It's always been what? To remove the United States from the face of the earth and to remove Israel off the face of the earth. It's an existential threat. And so President Trump, along with Benjamin Netanyahu, said enough is enough. We're going to take seriously these threats. We see that you're getting very close to having a nuclear weapon. And if you get a nuclear weapon, that's going to change everything. Because Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. We saw that on October 7th. Their proxy, Hamas, attacked Israel. 1,200 people murdered, hostages taken, women and young girls raped, babies burned alive or beheaded before their parents. They saw the whole thing. Terrible, terrible atrocities. And then the next day, October 8th, Hezbollah from the north, Lebanon, one of the most powerful proxies of Iran, they strike Israel as well. And then you have the Houthis from Yemen. They're firing missiles at Israel too. In fact, I was in Israel just a few months ago, and I had to go to a bomb shelter twice because the Houthis had fired ballistic missiles into Israel. So, the United States and Israel were saying enough is enough. We're going to take you at your word. You mean death to America. You mean death to Israel. Therefore, we need to remove that existential threat by making sure that you no longer have the ability to create a nuclear weapon. Come to the negotiating table, because if you don't, it's only going to get worse. President Trump made it very clear, if there's any retaliation, it's only going to get worse for you. What you saw on June 21st, 2025, it's only going to get worse for you. Well, what was Iran's response? Not long thereafter, state TV, they issued a statement. And the statement was this: the United States, you started it, we're going to finish it. In fact, they put up a graphic of all the military bases near the Iranian area, near the state of Iran, all these different military bases that are in the Middle East, and stated that we are going to basically attack all of these bases. Also, the foreign minister said that there's going to be everlasting consequences for what the United States has done. And we've noticed and noted here on the podcast that even our FBI a couple of years ago, they were stating that there are terror cells here in the United States. How many? We don't know. Terror cells that may be associated with Hamas or Hezbollah, ultimately from Iran. They're the source of it all. And so there's a very great concern about what that can mean for our home front as well as our troops overseas. So they issue that threat. And then on top of that, early morning hours, Iran fires 35 ballistic missiles. And unfortunately, 3 made it through, penetrated, direct hits. and I believe injured about 89 people. Fortunately, it appears that there were no deaths that took place as a result of those strikes. On top of that, it was reported that the foreign minister of Iran is now going to be meeting with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. And they're going to coordinate a response to the United States. This is very, very important for us to see. Iran and Russia have been allies for quite some time. In fact, just recently, this year, they signed an agreement, a 20-year agreement that they would work together on all different fronts, economically and socially and militarily. So it's going to be very fascinating to see what the next steps are. In addition, I think it's very concerning that former president of Russia, Medvedev, he said today that there are other countries that are willing to give to Iran a nuclear warhead from their stockpile to Iran directly. So these are things of great concern, not only for Israel, but here in the United States as well, on the home front and in our military bases as well. So how should we respond as believers in Jesus Christ? First and foremost, I believe God wants us to be alert. We need to be alert to what the signs of the times are. I believe, we've been stating this before on different podcasts, that the stage is being set for the battle of Gog and Magog in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Now, one of the things that's very interesting about chapter 38 is it says that before the battle of Gog and Magog, that Israel will reside in peace along its borders. And then there will be a strike led by Russia from the north. Then you'll have Turkey involved, you'll have Persia, which is modern-day Iran, and you'll have other countries along northern Africa, so from the north, the east, and the south, that are going to strike Israel. Israel will be outmanned and outgunned, but God will divinely intervene through 4 judgments and liberate Israel from its enemies. But what's interesting is that Israel will be in a time of relative peace. And what we are seeing right now is the landscape of Israel. What's surrounding Israel is different than like no other time before. Because before October 7th, you had Hamas in the Gaza Strip. You had Hezbollah to the north. You had Syria that was opposed to Israel as well. And so Israel was surrounded. And now we see not only has Hamas been taken out, Hezbollah has been taken out, and now Iran has been diminished greatly. Could this be the very thing that sets the stage, changing things geopolitically in the Middle East so that there will be a season of peace for Israel? But remember, Russia, Turkey, Iran, and those nations in the north part of Africa, they have long memories. Please remember, even though we may forget, they will never forget what happened on June 21st, 2025. They will never change their mission statement, which is to remove the great Satan, the United States, and the small Satan, Israel. That is their goal. From the river to the sea, Palestine must be free. That is their mantra. And so they are going to, with that time, with that lull, begin to re-empower themselves, re-fortify themselves, so ultimately when the time is right, they will strike Israel once again. But that being said, this is, I believe, the potential for peace in the Middle East, even if it's for a short season, all in keeping with the fulfillment of Ezekiel 38 and 39, which, by the way, will then set the stage for the coming of the Antichrist later. And here's the reason why. You see, once Russia is destroyed, once Iran is destroyed, Turkey is destroyed, and those nations that are Muslim nations in the north of Africa, they're destroyed. That's going to change everything geopolitically in the Middle East. And it will be the Antichrist who's going to come from a resurrected Roman Empire from the West that's going to seize upon that opportunity to fill that void, make a 7-year agreement with Israel, appear to be the chief benefactor of Israel. In fact, Israel will even be able to rebuild the temple, something that they've wanted to do. Make this agreement, but halfway through that 7-year pact, he will break that agreement. The abomination of desolation will be set up in the temple. He will want everyone to worship him, which the Jews will definitely not do. And he will become the chief persecutor of the Jews. The Jews will have to flee. Leave. Jesus said, if you are in Jerusalem and you see the abomination of desolation, Matthew 24, you need to flee the city immediately. And it'll be towards the end of the tribulation period, the Great Tribulation, that the Jews will begin to see. Their eyes will be opened. There will be a revelation that the one that they rejected is their Messiah. And they will call upon him whom they pierced. And a spirit of grace and supplication will be poured out upon the nation of Israel. And they will be saved, and Christ will return, and he will deliver them from the hand of the Antichrist, and then set up his 1,000-year reign. What a glorious, glorious time that will be. But now we need to be prepared, and we need to be praying for Israel. And we, like never before, need to take to heart Jesus' words in Matthew chapter 5, to let our light shine. To let our light shine by walking and standing firm in our faith and not being overcome by evil, but to overcome evil with the good. We need to be in prayer, not only for those who love us and who are our friends, but also pray for our enemies and love them. So that way we are considered children of our Heavenly Father. These are critical, critical times. These are times where we need to be very alert, very sober-minded, and be prepared because Jesus Christ is coming back. And what a glorious day that will be when he will make right all that is wrong. Well, I want you to know that Blessors of Israel is going to keep an eye on these ever-evolving events. And I want you to make sure that you can check out our website by going to www.blessors.org. That's blessors with an ors.org. I want you to, especially for those who are watching for the first time, to see our vision and mission statement as a new ministry. In addition, I want to encourage you to go to our newsroom. There you'll see curated news concerning Israel and the Middle East. So you'll see the latest updates. You'll see original articles with a biblical perspective as well. If you haven't done so, I want to encourage you to like this podcast and make sure you share it with your friends and subscribe to this channel as well. You can follow us on Facebook, X, and Getter. And we truly appreciate your prayers and your financial partnership as we build this new and important ministry. Please remember, those who bless Israel will be blessed. Shalom, shalom.